Hello and good morning, and thank you for joining us late. We've had some little technical difficulty this morning with our platform, and as you can see, my lighting is off a little bit too. So I do apologize. Although this is our kickoff one, and we certainly wanted to have just a little bit more, less difficulty getting on, such as technology. We adapt, we move on, and we go from there. So. Kelly, thanks so much for joining us on this first Balance Your Market. You're really a series now designed for, marketing people. Really, there's a lot of places that are out there for owners, sales, service, but really you never see anything for marketing. So, hopefully after now that we get through our technical difficulty here, we have a great session today, and then we go on to future ones that will continue to provide us great insight and audience participation as we go along. So thanks for joining us. Why don't you give a quick snapshot of your background so we can frame it out for our audience this morning?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And thanks for duplicating my identity. I've always wondered what it was like to have a clone.
Well, if I'm your clone, then, I'm doing pretty good. So.
Well, my name is Kelly Stone. I am a digital marketer. I have more than 15 years of experience in the industry, and a lot of that time has been spent in the IT services world. So my specialty is social media, digital storytelling, branding, and online I talk about AI, digital strategies, marketing trends that you should know about, and leadership tactics for women. So thanks for having me here today.
Trying to get one of my lights on here, but not happening. So, okay. Well, again, thanks for joining. So today we're going to kick off and we're really going to dive into the attributes of marketing in this digital image that we all talk about. And so I know we had talked about some topics in there, but one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and really clear out from a beginning expectation type thing is, where do you think the foundation of digital marketing is?
Man, that's a great question. I went to a social media session many, many years ago, and the guy talked about how he had 30 years of social media marketing, which seemed impossible to me because I remember Facebook coming online and what that excitement felt like. But he was talking about AOL instant messaging and about using those old school chat rooms and things like that for marketing. So digital marketing has been around a lot longer than one would assume, and it encompasses a lot of elements. And I think that's what makes it exciting. So it's not just social media, it's also YouTube, it's how you present your story online, it's how you're carrying those visual representation from your website to your marketing to your email to even what you look like at trade shows. So all of those elements can speak to your brand and can speak to your digital storytelling as well.
Yeah. Where would you say most organizations fail to realize where their base is, though? I mean, is it the website? Is it a social media? Where do we land from a level of importance?
I think that's a great question. I think that so much of what we see online is sort of assumption based. So I can remember in the 90s thinking, why does Pepsi need a website? Obviously now, if Pepsi didn't have a website, it would be a huge oversight. I think social media is there. If you go to engage with a service and it's not on social media at all, you start to wonder about the effectiveness of that service, or whether it's something that can be trusted. The credibility really comes to it. So I think that you need to have those things working in concert, and you need to be thinking about how all of those things work together and how the story is told throughout. You don't want your Facebook page to look dramatically different from your website, or your Twitter to be standalone as compared to your LinkedIn company page. So thinking about these things holistically on a macro level before we start thinking about individual activations is really important.
Yeah, yeah. So look at in some of this, we see some new trends coming in, and we've talked a little bit about macro, and but let's go kind of reel back a little bit where we
Mhm.
had very traditional face-to-face marketing, and then the pandemic hit, and then where now we're going into some different kinds of times with potential recession and all that. Where do you see some of these different? Where's the impact?
There's certainly ebbs and flows to how we communicate, right? Before the pandemic, a lot of us worked in offices and we traveled to in-person meetings and we went to a million trade shows a year. And then all of a sudden that all stopped. And there was a period of time where I was talking to this webcam in this very office, like every 3 days to do a video to try and cut through the noise of the million emails that we got of every retailer we've ever visited's pandemic response. So you have to be scrappy, you have to pivot. I think what's going to be interesting in the next couple of years, it's clear that we're in some level of a recession. Those of us who have been working for a while understand what that pivot looked like last time. I worked at a high-end home goods store during the last pandemic. And let me tell you, it's really hard to sell a $48 baking sheet when people are worried about their mortgages. So
Yeah.
being cognizant of what the environment looks like out there and not being tone deaf has never been more important. There's that joke around election times, like social media managers read the room. If you do one thing, read the room right now and see how people are feeling before you communicate things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty interesting, and that a lot of our friends here are in the vendor or MSP space, and I hear a lot of them saying, it's time we're trying to raise prices, and then all of a sudden, these times roll around, and now everybody's saying, do I raise prices? How do I raise prices? How do I justify it? And certainly that's a piece of marketing too, right? On communicating seamlessly to your customers. So uh, one of the things that I always feel is we do a lot of outbound and we focus a lot on prospecting, but we don't
Mhm.
do really well as marketeers focusing on our existing clients. How does
Right.
that play?
And that's an interesting point too. There's never going to be a perfect time to raise prices, and just because the environment, um, fails to recognize the value, it doesn't mean that it's not worth it. It's all about how you're communicating that out there. And if you're going to raise prices, is there a way that you can soften the blow for your existing customers? Can you offer a loyalty discount? Can you ramp up? Can you segment it by quarter? I think that being creative and being scrappy with how we present these things, and also being accommodating, understanding that people are in a strange space. They may be laying off their staff. They may have to make some really difficult decisions about upgrades and expenses, and understanding where you fit in those priorities can help you communicate effectively as well.
Yeah, yeah. Without a doubt, it's communication is like the king, right? So that's what marketing really is communication out to the various parties that you're trying to reach, which is something that's really interesting right now, right? So we have this new thing called Chat GPT, and we've heard of the new one coming from that's in beta and limited release from Google called BART, right? So what do you think the impact of AI is going to be on some of this right now? How do
We're
we
at the
take that?
beginning of, oh, I'm sorry, keep going.
No, no. I mean, how do we take this and really, as marketeers, where do we see it? Where is it going? Is it a replacement? Where do you think it's going?
Whether it's a replacement or not remains to be seen, but I know I would be watching this very closely if I worked at a major search engine for sure. I think we're at the beginning of a revolution. I think that those who learn how to use it effectively will come out on top. I think a lot about when I was in school, they had to teach us how to use Google when it first came out, and how to use a Boolean search, and what it means to add pluses and minuses and quotes to your searches. So getting savvy about how to create prompts that matter will set you apart from your competitors quickly. And failing to focus on these tasks and figuring out acceptable use policies for your staff will put you behind in a very significant way. And I think that we have ChatGPT, we have Bard, we have all sorts of things that are just exploding on the market. And how they're going to be used in marketing is, we're just scratching the surface. I mean, you can ask it to help you create a 90-day plan. You can ask it to help you draft a proposal. I used it for my headshots on LinkedIn, and some of them even look like me. So the revolution is just beginning. There's some great resources out there. I see Wes McDonald is joining us. He has a AI Explorers group. There's amazing content on YouTube that talks about crafting significant proposals and prompts using these technologies. So now's the time to really embed yourself in that and set yourself apart.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I see it, and I see a lot of journalists really concerned with what the AI is doing to them right now. And certainly, we have a lot of content we write as marketeers. So from that perspective, what impacts have you seen so far on those folks? I mean, I know you and we talk to a lot of them, so it definitely, has a play. I have my opinion, but I'm gonna let you go first.
I think the true value of all of these tools is making things easier at the beginning. The dream of every piece of automation that has ever existed, from factory work to today, is that it would free up humans for more interesting and engaging work. So we never have to sit in front of a piece of paper and think about, what are we going to write about? We can ask these things. What are the top 5 marketing trends that I should be aware of? And start pontificating there. I don't think that it's really great quite yet at creating full tilt content from beginning to end. I think it's great at the beginning and at the end. I had an amazing boss who once told me that his biggest impact on my workday should be at the beginning of a project and at the end of a project. And I think about that a lot as it relates to AI. It's a beginning and an end. It's not all the way through. My AI headshots still are trying to figure out how many arms a human woman needs. So we're not quite there yet.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. You did an interesting experiment with the AI using it for headshots. We've been using it more, but we've really been looking at content and what it is. And what we found is it's a great starting spot. And obviously it's evolving and changing and going. And it looks like I just lost my camera for some reason.
I can still hear you. We're still here.
Frozen up. Hopefully you can still hear me.
I can, yeah.
Yeah, you can still hear me?
Oh, there you are.
Uh-oh. Let's see. What happened here?
And to your point about creating content using AI, it's an interesting experiment, but I've found that my AI created content isn't.
Sorry about that. Kelly, I lost your audio. So how about now? Let's see. Is Kelly back? So I'm going to give my opinion, and Kelly can jump back in as soon as we can hear her again. We've seen this in journalism really quick. It's had an immediate impact on content, right? And we've been following Reddit and watching people writing legal agreements. Of course, the lawyers will tell you, don't just take that legal agreement and put it out there, because some things may not be defensible or the language might not be right. Those are definitely some strange components. And let me plug in real quick.
Well, I've used AI to help me create LinkedIn posts, and I found them to be somewhat flat. I mean, it definitely feels like it was written by a computer.
Huh? We can still hear her. I can't hear her. So okay. Okay, so I'm just going to go on, Kelly, and we'll work through these technical difficulties of GoToWebinar today.
Perfect.
And chalk one up to a great time and a lot of fun navigating technology. And there's a lot of people out there that will probably call me after and say, I know someone that can help you. But we've gone through now and we've experimented with this AI platform, and it's really given us some ideas to think through certain content, but other content we're finding still leaves a lot to be desired, right? And that's a definite place to beware. We don't want people to just go out and rely on it, because you need to still proofread your content. You need to make sure that grammatically it's there. And, the choice of words could dramatically change the meaning of what you're doing in such things like privacy statements or legal agreements, or even just some content for scopes of work and things of that nature. So without a doubt. So do you have any other opinion on that? I'm going to watch your lips on the screen so I know you're talking.
I've used ChatGPT to create some
Okay.
LinkedIn posts in the past, and what I've found is that
think
when you ask it to create a viral LinkedIn post, it will make
Mark,
something. It's
I
not
think I figured
particularly
out
engaging content because it feels like it's written by
issue
a
here
robot.
with sound.
It doesn't understand human emotion quite yet.
Yep. Yeah. And that's a key part, human emotion, right? A lot of times when we write and we do that, human emotion is big. So we covered a couple topics here, and today's session really was to kick off of what is, marketing, components of marketing, things that are coming. And there's some other topics that we've got coming down the road, but one of the components, I got the sound fixed, by the way, so now I can hear you
Perfect.
again, which really excites me. It makes me happy again, right? That I can hear you, and others can hear us fumbling around, at least me. But so the I always consider a website the foundational portion of the digital image. What do you think on that?
Uh, it's an interesting idea of where we start. I think we must start with a website. You have to have a destination for people. And depending on the nature of your business, that may be where the business takes place. So, the idea of all social and digital advertising is that you want to drive someone to create an outcome. So, if that is happening on your website, that should be the cornerstone of what you're creating. And I think it's where you start to build your brand and tell your story in a way that exists throughout time. The half life of a social or digital post can be really, really short, especially on Twitter. So you want to have a place where you can store and showcase all of that content over time.
Right, right. So, the website also has a huge impact on your search engine and your organic search, right? So,
Mhm.
making sure that your content is relevant, doesn't sound the same as everybody else. I know there's a lot of websites out there that are cookie cutter, right? And
Mhm.
you pay a small fee per month or a fee per month, and you get a service that goes along with it, etc. But uh, the other side of it is that when you index the same as everybody else. So it's very hard organically for you to improve what you are. And, so one of the takeaways on that is we always talk about um, organic SEO versus paid.
Mhm.
And, a lot of people had during the pandemic. Here's a great example of the pandemic pre and post, right? Pre-pandemic, people heard of PPC, but they didn't want to do it. During the pandemic, everybody jumped in. They changed their budgets, they pushed them because they weren't
Mhm.
spending prime time of people. They needed to get people searching for them better. So they bought the keyword phrases, the advertisements. Problems was they were paying a premium because they weren't organically optimized. So what do you think of organic versus PPC? Where
You really can't have one without the other. To your point, you need to have that foundation. And I would argue that you should exhaust your organic options before you start investing in paid to make sure that you've left no stone unturned. There's a million different things, but you can't pay to make your content engaging.
right? Right. And so when you sound the same as everybody else and you're in a cookie cutter website, that's something that you need to think about, right? If you're trying to differentiate from your competitor and your site is there. Now, again, we have vendors and MSP people working in industry here. Now, vendors usually have a unique proposition or play on their product, where MSPs, hate to say it and crack it to you guys, but you all have the same stack, you all have the same thing. So, maybe a little hint is go back and see, how is your culture tied into your website? How does that come out? What makes you unique from your competitor? Those are some things in there that are always out there. So there was a question that came in, and it said, in the cost-cutting environment in business, is a great time to raise prices, but actually, let me see here. This is, let me get it so it's bigger. And actually, uh, providing value through the automation, workflows, enhancements, and not simply offering commodities, but real business value. What is our opinion on that? So.
Yeah, and I think that goes to what we discussed a little bit earlier, is it's okay to raise your prices if you have all of the information to back it up. If you can say you're getting 4x your value on this because of these 3 things that we've done for you, or if you're saying, I need to raise my prices to pay for my bottom line, those are different messaging for sure. And one is going to go over much easier than the other. If you're providing value for your customers, you get to call the shots because people will pay to work with the best. So that's a point of differentiation, to your point, Pete, and the unique value proposition that you bring to your clients as well.
Right. So that certainly from a value proposition, from another conversational of is, if pricing pressure or price resistance is truly something that the client is demanding, how was that created? And what I found through the market, and this is my opinion, is MSPs over the years were great at driving the price resistance, not the customers, right? They always felt like, one of the things that I say is do you realize we're the only industry that as an MSP, you can't buy online? You can buy a car online. You can buy a house online. You can do a full mortgage online. You can buy just about anything you want. You cannot buy MSP services. You know why? Because everybody's afraid to publish what their rate is. And I say, why? If you truly differentiate yourself and can prove the value, why are you afraid to publish your price? If anything, that brings your competitor up to your price and makes it easier for you not to have a price resistance conversation, right? So I never got, why that was. But in the last year, I have seen more companies standing their ground on their price and not giving, because from a sales perspective, not just a marketing, is why would you want to give up the only thing that you truly have, which is your labor, right? They can buy the same stack from anybody. They really can, right? Whether it's a security product, there's 5 or 6, maybe 10, 20 that stack up and pretty much do similar things, right? But in the end, the customer's buying the relationship. They still are buying from people. They're buying from people they know, and that's what marketing needs to convey, is that culture, your people, not necessarily the stack that you're providing. The stack is important, but if they like you and they're comfortable with you and you're approachable, you're more likely to get the sale than your competitor down the street that wants to talk speeds and feeds. All right. So.
And I think we can take a page out of the music industry from this one. Competing on price is a dangerous proposition there, because we live in a post-Napster world. When we all decided we don't pay for music, what makes you pay? Now, Taylor Swift is still a multimillionaire, and it's because you're not just physically buying your music. You're buying into her story. You're going to these concert experiences. And in some ways, you are paying as a vote of confidence in her as an artist too. She's been brilliant in crafting a story in a community that lifts her up and opens their wallets to her as well. So price is not going to be something that you want to start playing with, because if you are competing on price alone, you will only compete on price. You won't compete on service. You won't compete on your relationships. And to your point, we are people doing business with other people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Kelly, I know we've talked about some things here, um, and I know right now you're a freelancer. So how do people get
Mhm.
in touch with you?
Absolutely. I am the Kelly E. Stone on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with guys and stay in touch and understand how I can help you tell your story online.
Okay, good. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to do the I'm gonna click and I am going to unmute the audience. And we've got a handful of people out there, and so let's see. I am okay. Folks, I think you have the ability to unmute yourselves. You're all self-muted at this point. You should be able to jump in and ask a question if you'd like to have conversation here or add to the conversation that we've already had going. So feel free. If you can't, there is the ability to raise your hand. So please raise your hand and we will unmute you if that's the case and get you on mic so you can ask your question. We can chat about what you want to talk about. Anybody? All right. I guess all of our audience today. So I know we ran our first sessions today that went through and obviously technical difficulties, and we will have backup ready for next time. We did have backup, but it really fell down onto a internet connectivity problem. And even though we have backup internet connectivity, it seems like there might be some issues lurking in the background from our favorite carriers in this area. So
Who shall
and
remain unnamed.
yeah, and as Murphy Law would happen is you're kicking off your first of your series and going. So big marketing faux pas here but nothing we can control. But it's how do you recover and how do you move forward? And that's another kind of thing with marketing. When something does go wrong, how do you recover and move forward? A good thing in business, etc. Um, so at that point, I'm still waiting. I see some questions. Okay, let me go. I can see there. Somebody said cannot unmute. Okay, so let's take a look at this real quick and see what I can do here. As it says, everybody has audio.
I see a lot of familiar names in the attendee list, so thanks for your support on our first broadcast, guys.
Yeah. It says mute all participants, but it's not letting me unmute. So I'm not sure what's going on with the platform today. Obviously, this just adds to, certainly as a host, our frustration, but we will move on and you can put your question into the chat. And even though we can't do it, Kelly and I'd be happy to have some quick conversation. I see some of it is web. So people have joined through the web interface, and it might be because you joined through the web interface that I can't unmute you if you're in the streaming section. And so we encourage you in the future to join right in and not through the web, because that's where you may be getting blocked as allowing us to unmute you there. So a note for us on that one. So in our next section, that's coming up, we will be advertising it soon. What we have coming up is Eric Bowles. Eric has worked in some pretty magnificent places. He's worked in Uggs. at a senior level of that. He's worked at Zappos. He most recently worked at Pax8. A lot of people know, but some really big names. And Eric has a real keen viewpoint on video. So we're going to focus a lot on video and using video in various aspects of marketing. So Kelly, before we kind of go from that, what do you think on video? Where does video play a role these days?
It's hugely important. There was a statistic many years ago that said one day 80% of all content consumed on social media will be video. And at that point, it felt like a huge burden to reach. However, I would argue that video is part of most engaging posts these days. And especially if you are creating video for social, chances are it's being consumed on silent as well. So optimizing that user experience to understand that people may be watching this phone on an airplane or a bus or somewhere on their commute. It's important, and it's a great way to connect directly with your audience, with your face, with your voice, and with your story without worrying about the filter of how people will interpret the spoken or written word.
Yeah. And I take it back down to even that part of it is people buy from people they know. So video is a way to connect. People see your face, they recognize you. Now your brand and your face have some connectivity points, and that's a really key component in there. So I see a question here, and let me go to the question box. Will you be sending a recording of today's webinar? Yes, we will be sending out a copy of the recording. It will get out over the next day or so, and it will also have the follow-up information for the next webinar that we will provide and deliver with Eric Bowles. Of course, after Eric Bowles, then we have Kelsey Blankenship Blackland. And Kelsey is relatively new to industry, but she learned very quickly on personal brand. Kelly, how important is personal brand of owners or salespeople in marketing?
It is hard to measure, but it is impossible to replicate. And Kelsey is a master at this. Her posts on LinkedIn and Twitter are engaging, are personal, and have a touch that can't be replicated elsewhere. We know that people do business with people. And while we can't necessarily measure our personal brand, you know if you have it, you know if you don't. So it's something that I have spent a lot of time and effort building and continuing to nurture, knowing that these are the types of interactions that will lead me to where I want to go in my career and my business as well.
Right. And so personal brand is, so what do you think people know you for your personal brand? What do you try to achieve in your personal brand? What are some key elements?
I would say that the posts that I have that are the biggest, most engaging are ones that are genuinely helpful, in which I share my expertise without reservations. So being the person who you want to portray in real life as well as online, marrying those together and providing advice from your own unique point of view. People find value in that, and people recognize and understand that you're giving back in that way too.
Yep. Without a doubt, without a doubt. Mine's really mixed. People know me for like my serious side of business and all that. And then they also know me from like the Channel Strong tour and my race car coming around, or my two different race cars that shifted last year due to one getting damaged in the trailer. And then ultimately the second one got damaged in the trailer that I have to get fixed now. So,
Oh
so that's
no.
not like my vehicles, but we had a lot of fun traveling around with Channel Strong the last 3 years, and it was a perfect example of adapting to pandemic, outside of pandemic, branding for the partners that were on the tour. And then the time came where it just didn't have the relevancy anymore, and it was time to shift. And I think there's a lesson there of being able to shift from one thing to another, right? So those are good things. Well, we have only a couple minutes left. what else would you like to add?
I think that it's interesting that you said that you shifted from those Channel Strong events, which I loved. The one in Chicago was great. And I think that's an important lesson for marketers as well. It's easy to audit our output and understand what is working, but understanding these 5 things are creating results doesn't help you unless you also identify 5 things that aren't working that you can stop doing so that it gives you time to optimize those other items. So that's a good takeaway as well, is get rid of the stuff that isn't creating results quickly so that you can clean the slate for other things as well.
Yep. Yeah. I always say, fail fast, fail forward. We as a society say we fail. You get a grade of A through F, right? But
Mm-hmm.
we created that, right? It came from human beings, right? We created that. But a failure is really not a failure. It's a learning experience. It's an opportunity to take the best parts of what did work before it didn't work, right? And take that and craft it into other things and come out with bigger or better or more unique type things. And I think as marketeers, we get stuck in that model of doing and repetitive and doing the same things over and over. And what I will tell you is if you have creative people, get them involved on this webinar. I promise the next one is going to go off without a hitch, right? Famous last word. But I will tell you, continue to be creative. Don't be afraid to explore. But if it's not working or you get bad comments, understand them and then see what parts are working. And we always, with our creative team, are looking to create, do things, and stay ahead of the curve. Even the way we advertise this, we did some reels lately and some stories and just some different things that others are not doing. So always experiment, move forward, and continue on your journey of marketing. And hopefully, we'll see you back here next time with our installment with Eric, and then with Kelsey. And then after that, we have Bobby Jacobs. And Bobby is going to talk about the importance of chat through digital mediums, whether it's website for support or sales, or through another channel that comes through social and all the places that you can do that, right? So we're going to deal with different aspects. And then after that, we have somebody that's actually from out of industry, not even in the technology side. They deal with heating and ventilation companies, but they're very strong. Those markets deal very strongly in print. So print media is making a comeback, right? It is. Postcards and some bulky mailers are making a comeback, right? Because people are tired of email, they're tired of phone calls. So what's another way to reach them? So something snappy in a postcard or a way to reach somebody is another methodology. So Kelly, I always end my webinars, and I feel it's like, I think it's CNN where they go last word. So Kelly, last word.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this kickoff and sticking with us through the technology challenges that we will always have. It is inevitable. And I look forward to connecting with you all online. Please let me know if there's any way that I can assist you, because remember, we're all in this together.
Yep. I'm your host, Pete Busam from Equilibrium Consulting. You can reach me at pete@equilibriumconsult.com. You can go to the website, equilibriumconsult.com, and you can schedule an appointment right off of our page there with me directly. If there's something you want to talk about, please feel free. I always love chatting with people that we've met, audience, and talking about something. Or if you just want to try something and you want a second opinion, give me a shout. And of course, there's a couple vendors on here that are pretty good marketeers themselves. And if you'd like to be considered to be a guest, please reach out to me. You can get me on LinkedIn. You can get me through the website. And again, pete@equilibriumconsult.com. I really want to thank everybody for joining us today and sticking with us, like Kelly said. I do apologize for the late start and the technology issues, but Hopefully you got a little bit as to what's to come, and there are going to be some pretty in-depth conversations. And hey, who knows? You might just see Kelly pop back in here again. You never know. She might just jump in on conversations and be a part of uh, other future episodes. You just never know when she could just jump in, and she might be in the audience, and who knows? We just promote her in to be a panelist and get her back on screen discussing with us. So Kelly, thank you so much for kicking this off with me and jumping in on the back end here to help us get this thing launched and started. And for the rest of you, we'll see you real soon. Look for a recording, look for the next invite, and remember, balance your market. It is a balance. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day.